What's good, everybody? It's your boy Champagne Chico. Today we're going to have NBA free agency for dummies. This is not calling you out, but a lot of people get confused whenever the free agency comes around, and especially this year because there's a new CBA agreement and there's a lot of more complicated things going on, people questioning trades that are happening, people questioning signings that are happening, and we're going to get into it today. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is just the significant trades and significant signings that there have been and why they're important and why they're pivotal because of this new CBA agreement. So one of the first trades of the offseason was the Jordan Poole trade, or one of the first ones that people were confused about. And the reason why the Warriors did pack up Jordan Poole was not only because of the situation with Draymond Green and them getting into a fight, but it was also because with the new CBA agreement, there's a second apron that can cause them to lose a type of contract that they can use on certain role players. And to get just directly into it, the second apron is where if a team passes that level, they can't use their taxpayer mid-level exception, which they used last year for Dante DiVincenzo to come to the Warriors, which was a great signing for them in retrospect, but now it was kind of an overpay in a way. But Dante DiVincenzo came to the Warriors, and that was on that $6.4 million deal. But if they were in the second apron, which technically, if you look at it from last year and how much they spent, they would have been in the second apron, and they wouldn't have been able to get Dante on their bench. And that would have been a pivotal piece because now it's the same thing. Now, right now, the Miami Heat can't do it because they're over the second apron in terms of next year. And they're kind of putting it into effect now. It's not going to be in effect for trades until next year for the 2023 agreement. And the CBA is causing a lot of different trades to happen. I mean, you had Rudy Gay getting traded from the Utah Jazz for John Collins and a second-round pick. I think the Hawks received a second-round pick and Rudy Gay, and John Collins went to the Jazz. And the reason why they did that was a similar thing. They were going to be over the second apron next year. They weren't willing to pay John Collins and go into that second apron, and that would have been an issue for them. And I don't think there was much of any other trades that caused the second apron, but this Bradley Beal trade just might be. And it's something that the top three players are at $140 million. And that's already going to hurt you. They have to do a bunch of minimum contracts. They basically got almost everybody that they have on the bench for minimum contracts. The Miami Heat, they had to pay players basically nothing to come to the Heat. Like Thomas Bryant took a minimum deal to come to the Heat. Josh Richardson came to the Heat on a minimum deal. And it wasn't even because they're worth that much. It's because they want to go to the Heat and they want to be part of that organization. Kevin Love could have been paid because he had bird rights on his contract for the Heat. Desmond Bane just got paid a 5-year extension. Marcus Smart getting traded by the Celtics. That wasn't even more of a CBA agreement situation. It was just because the Celtics didn't want Marcus Smart. He was aging. They're going to be paying him a lot of money. And now they're just going to be paying Kristaps Porzingis the same in that 3-team trade that they got. They signed him for a longer deal. LaMelo Ball getting an extension. Max Strus not being able to stay with the Heat. And neither Gabe Vincent. Both players, they had the bird rights on him, but they would have been in that second apron, as we've talked about before. And if you have any questions about the CBA or in general, I would be more than happy to make another video about it. But just making sure you can write your questions down in the comments below, and I will either respond there or I'll just make a whole new video with all of your questions down there. But Draymond Green getting signed to the Warriors for an extended deal was a key move. And also the Jordan Poole was the reason why he was able to do that. Chris Paul joining the Warriors on the same contract that he has, which is interesting how they haven't kind of pivoted and turned him to another team. And, another thing about the CBA is that the Houston Rockets, so teams have to be over 90% spent on their contracts and on their salary, or the NBA will take the rest of the money. They can't use that money or save it for the next year like they have done in previous years, that they can just overload the money if need be, or if they're not able to get players and put it into other years. They can't do that anymore. So the teams that are not at that 90% mark are trying to get there and are trying to spend that money instead of just like saving it throughout. And that's why they went out and got Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet. Dylan Brooks is on an $80 million 4-year deal. Fred VanVleet, in my opinion, getting overpaid, but a point guard for them, a pretty good one, but he's just aging a lot. And Bruce Brown going to the Indiana Pacers for 2 years. I think his second year is a team option. The Los Angeles Lakers were able to get a lot of players back, and it was because they had bird rights on some of them, but they also had a lot of money kind of stored a little bit, and they were able to use it in a way that they're able to get these players back. D'Angelo Russell had bird rights. Rui Hachimura and Austin Reeves. Gabe Vincent came in for $11 million for 3 years. Cam Reddish isn't getting paid much. Taurean Prince is on a 1-year minimum, and Jackson Hayes is getting paid, I think, about $5 million per. So it's not too bad right now, but a lot of teams are trying to get out of that second apron for next year. Now, to get into exactly what the CBA entails and why so many teams are kind of fumbling to get what they want to get done this year in terms of trades, in terms of salary and salary dumps, is that they can't send out cash in trades anymore. Teams are ordinarily allowed to include certain amount of cash in trades per season, with this season's figuring coming in at around $6 million. So you maybe have seen it last year. The Heat traded Dwayne Dedmon for cash from the Spurs, and it was just a straight up trade like that. We just offloaded Dedmon and we got cash back. You can't do that anymore. Teams frequently use this tool when they make unbalanced trades or need another team to take on a player to clear a roster spot. They cannot trade first-round picks that are more than 6 years into the future now, which a lot of teams have used before. They've done that. I think it was the Kevin Durant trade to the Nets, if I'm not mistaken, or there have been times that teams have used that 6 years in advance move for the first-round picks, and that's another thing that's going to have to go because that's too far ahead in the future. That's overusing your draft picks, and you're basically not only screwing yourself, but the NBA. So it's kind of a mutual agreement because you're turning yourself into a rebuilding franchise in 6 years at that point, because the players that you're going to be trading for that much are usually not that young to be going all the way to those 6 years. The NBA allows teams to trade draft picks up to 7 years into the future, but that last season will be restricted to these teams. They cannot make trades in which they take back more salary than they send out. So there's no salary dumping coming next year. The trades, as I said, the trades don't come into effect until next year, but the contracts and the agreements start this year. It's kind of a shift in a way. It's kind of a shift of what teams are used to. It would take all day to list all the blockbuster trades that these rules would restrict. The James Harden one, don't know why I said the Kevin Durant one, but he would have never been a Brooklyn Net with these restrictions. Kevin Durant wouldn't be a Phoenix Sun because of the pick swaps that they have all the way in like 2031 at this point. Steve Ballmer won't be able to use his immense wealth to make trades like the 2022 deadline he swung for Norman Powell and Robert Covington anymore. And they're basically doing this CBA because there's a lot of rich owners coming in that are billionaires and just will spend their money on the NBA team. And it's cool. Like, it adds more to the team. They want their city to enjoy it. They want their city to come to the games, and they pay that luxury tax. But you have the older owners like Mickey Arison on the Heat that are not going to be doing those same things. So they're trying to make it kind of equal in a way, but more going towards the side of, we're not going to let you use your rich money to get these players. These teams aren't even going to be able to pay off rivals to take players from them for the sake of tax savings, like Mickey Arison has done before, or what he wanted to do with Kyle Lowry. He wanted to waive him, extend his contract, whatever, or trade him and try not to be in a luxury tax. Predicting all of the ramifications of these new rules would be impossible. For now, the most important takeaway is it is not going to be significantly harder for teams to trade for a second or third superstar. Most teams that already have one in the building are either paying the tax or getting close to it. The CBA is going to have a pretty big impact on that, as much as they're saying that it's not going to be too pivotal. There's a lot of moves that used to happen that won't happen anymore. Like they said, the James Harden going to the Brooklyn Nets trade would never have happened if this CBA was in effect. And there's a new in-season tournament, but we're not going to get into that today. I'll go into that in another episode of this or another video of this. So like I said, the John Collins for Rudy Gay in a second-round pick. Normally, teams would get a lot more, or the Hawks would have gotten a lot more if they traded him earlier, and also just in general. They're getting Rudy Gay because he's an expiring contract, and it's a future second-round pick. Now, the Pistons took on Joe Harris's contract, which it was another salary dump in a way, and the Brooklyn Nets got a trade exception. A trade exception is where a team is able to have stored money in case they're not able to equal out the trade if they're trying to make a trade for somebody else, and they can use that money. I'll go more specifically into that with this one right here, where the Miami Heat traded Victor Oladipo to the Oklahoma City Thunder for draft compensation and a trade exception. The trade exception is specifically how much his compensation is, and it's about $9 million per year. He accepted his player option. He's injured, so I don't blame him. But they got a trade exception out of it, about 9.35, which can be used in the Damian Lillard trade. And that's going to be pivotal if they're able to get it done. With the Damian Lillard trade, we'll kind of go into that. Max Strus going to the Cleveland Cavaliers just because we didn't have the money. We got some value out of it. I'm sure that's kind of simple in itself, that a sign and trade is basically where the team that used to have him is still trying to get value for it, and the player that used to be on the team wants them to get some sort of value. In Miami, he got a second-round pick for it. Cedi Osman and Lamar Stevens went to the Spurs because the Cavs wanted to offload them, and they didn't really want to pay Cedi Osman this next year because I think he was on his player option or team option. And Max Strus goes to the Cleveland Cavaliers, a great shooter, needs to work on his shooting in the playoffs. So another thing that people kind of get confused about, and I think this is about like my third point because we kind of went into the CBA and the big trades and signings in itself. But another thing that is confused upon most of the time is NBA moratorium, period. And basically these teams make these deals, but it's not official up until whenever the day is. This year, it is July 6th at 12:01 p.m. And the free agent signings and trades made during new league year cannot be made official until then. So everything is basically a verbal agreement or just like a handshake type of thing up until July 6th for this year. So Oladipo and Strus trades announced sometime tomorrow officially by the NBA will probably happen. There's been times that it's kind of switched. Teams say that, or it's been reported that players agree to a deal with the team before NBA moratorium, and it kind of switches up whenever the paper is in front of them, and it's just like sitting in front of them. They're like, you know what? I'm okay. I'm going to go to this other team type of thing. But usually that doesn't happen. It's kind of just a period of, look, you can go talk, you can go make deals or whatever, but it's not going to be official until July 6th. So they're not officially on the team until July 6th. So Fred VanVleet, Dillon Brooks are not on the Houston Rockets yet. Chris Paul is not on the Warriors yet in terms of legality of the NBA and officialness of the NBA. So everything is still up in the air up until July 6th. So if that doesn't make much sense, let me know. I tried to explain it in a way that it did, but it's basically nothing is official that happened this offseason until July 6th. That's basically it. And to kind of go into something that's going on right now is Damian Lillard. And no team has made any new trades for him because of the way that him and his agent have, or his team basically, have been very vocal about how he only wants to play for the Heat. And no team is going to be trading their assets that the Portland Trailblazers want, like a bunch of first-round picks, young players. They're not going to be trading that for a superstar that's not going to want to be there, because then he can just not play, because that's how it works now, because they have their own freedom and all that stuff. So a big thing that's possibly going to happen right now is that there could be 5 teams. There could be 5 teams in this trade alone just because of the amount of picks or amount of assets that the Portland Trailblazers want, but also all the salaries that are going to be going around. So another big thing that could be confused whenever you're just scrolling through NBA media in general is that why would teams be included into these multi-team trades when they could be trying to get Damian Lillard if they had the assets already? Like I said previously, he doesn't want to be on any other team except for the Miami Heat. So they're going to be trying to get other types of assets from other teams, and it's just kind of all going to correlate into one. And since the Heat cannot give all the assets that the Trailblazers want alone, they need other teams, or they need at least another team like the Nets or the Spurs, because they've already been included, because the Blazers are not interested in taking Tyler Hero. The Spurs might be because they just got Wembanyama, or the Nets might be if they're able to get Ben Simmons off their team. And it's a possibility that Ben Simmons could be going to the Heat if that does happen. If they're going to be able to revive the man's career, who knows? But teams could be getting involved, at least 5, just because of the amount of assets that they could get out of it. And Jusuf Nurkic is another one that could be getting traded in this deal. So teams are going to be scrambling to try to get him. It's a whole thing right now, but over 5, I've heard 5 to 7 teams could be included, and that's kind of just how it's going to go right now, because since Dame wants to go to only Miami, this could entail so many assets that it kind of just gets lost in the wind of it when it comes to the trade for Dame. And the Blazers are in no rush to trade him, which they're going to say a lot of things, and they're going to end up being like, you know what, let's get him off for what we can right now. And I'm sure that they're still working on a trade, meaning the 5 to 7 teams, but the Blazers have gotten no new offers and won't get any new ones. The reality will eventually set in. Just in general, this trade alone is probably going to be one of the biggest trades in NBA history, just because of the amount of teams that are probably going to be involved in it. It could be the Spurs, the Nets, the Heat, the Blazers, and then maybe another team that could want somebody off of the Nets or Spurs in general. A lot of things could be still happening this offseason. The free agency has kind of died down in general for the signings and all that stuff. July 6th, meaning tomorrow, is going to be the official day that you're going to see the NBA posting, oh, this player's going here, this player's going here, this player's going here. This whole NBA free agency could be confusing for a lot of people. It gets confusing for me too. This has been NBA free agency for dummies, possibly episode 1. If you enjoyed it, please go down there, like and subscribe. I try to hit all the key points of this offseason that a lot of people have been seeing, meaning the signings, the trades, why all of them matter, the moratorium period that NBA teams have, the new CBA. I kind of tried to hit on the important things in terms of the second apron, the trades, how the salaries are going to have to be, how teams are going to lose things in general, and the Damian Lillard trade and why it hasn't already happened if he already requested and basically demanded to go to the Heat. So we're going to see how it all folds out. I could make another episode down the line. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, if you did, please go down there, like and subscribe. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. I try to make it simple. It's not very simple. It might get a little discombobulated at points in the video, but hopefully you did enjoy. I try to make it short, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.